Hi guys, welcome back to the Boneyard. I'm the Blonde Skeleton. This is part 2 of Little Pink House's Windows and Doors. So the original video was like 26 minutes long, so I kind of cut it into 2 pieces so it would fit in YouTube. This is what we got. So the first half was all about sculpting, and this half is all about taking those sculptures and turning them into molds so you can make multiple pieces that are identical. So I hope you enjoy this. Hope it gives you some ideas. Hope it inspires you and all that. Yeah, I'm very tired. It's a long Monday. Happy Thanksgiving. Okay, so I've baked my pieces. They're now nice and firm and ready to go, ready to be molded. I also finished off the window, which I put these kind of upward arching panes in, which I thought looked pretty neat. And then, of course, I've got my little ones. So I'm going to make a mold that'll be for all 3 of these if they'll fit. So the first things first is, whoops, I got to get my cornstarch. 1 second. Okay, so I'm going to take the cornstarch and I'm just going to dust right around the outside and inside of our cookie cutter. I'm also going to put a little cornstarch on the top of this, just because I don't want it to stick to my roller. Okay. This stuff is super fine, so it'll get all over the place. Just kind of roll with that. Be okay with it. This stuff, again, it's super soft, so it rolls out really quickly. You'll probably find you ended up with too thin or too thick of a piece, so you can just add to it or subtract from it. Again, I kind of want to get this about 3/8 of an inch thick, so I'm probably going to add a little bit to this. Just make sure I have plenty to mold here. Then my cookie cutter's about that size, so that'll be good. I'm going to try and waste as little as possible because stuff is wicked expensive. So that's the only drawback to this process, is that the mold maker is really expensive for how much you get of it. But the benefits of that are that you get a piece that, that takes, you saw how long that video was. It took me 30 minutes to sculpt these. It's going to take me about 2 minutes to make copies of it once I get my mold crafted. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to snap it down. We have a nice clean mold. I've got a little bit of excess here that I'm going to scrape out. Okay, so I got myself a nice clean piece. Push that back into the other parts. I'm going to peel this up, and I'm going to keep it inside the cookie cutter because I want it to maintain its shape, but I'm going to dust the bottom of this with enough cornstarch to cover it because I want it to not stick to my originals. Whoops, this popped right out of there. It's a little too slippery. I'm just going to pop it out. Now I want to position these on here in such a way that I can get clean molds of all 3 without it being too close to the edge. And I may not be able to do that, and that's okay. So I'm probably going to do the door on its own, and then the windows together, just because that'll make a stronger mold. So I'm going to position the windows kind of like that. Okay. I'm going to flip this over. I'm going to press them in just a little bit, but heck. Okay, maybe not. We'll do this, and then we'll do this. Use my cookie cutter and press this down into there. Okay, so now it fits, and I'm going to be able to just press it down and make a nice flat surface here. Now, when I press down on this, it's putting pressure down onto the original as well as out to the sides so that it presses into the mold, or into the original, to get a tighter mold, as well as a nice clean shape around the outside so we have a nice thick mold. So I just want to make sure that since I'm pressing with my thumb, it's not going to be perfectly even, so I want to make sure that it is as even as possible. Okay? I have a little bit of cornstarch on my hands just so it doesn't stick to me. Don't want that to happen. Okay? But as soon as that's done, you flip it over and you're going to have a nice, hopefully clean casting, which is going to look like this. Okay, nice and smooth on the bottom so it's perfectly flat. Okay, just gonna peel off this excess. My wife is in the kitchen making dinner or crashing around or something. Sorry. It's okay. I'm gonna pry this out of here very gently. I can push up from the bottom to kind of prop it up. This will give me something to bite on. And I did that just by pushing with my index finger underneath here. Peel this up. Gotta be careful with that sill, because if you bend it out, what you end up with is a deformed mold. But what we have here is a nice, beautiful mold. I'm gonna trim off these little pieces because they make it just a little messy. We'll make our castings a little bit weak when it comes to our sills, which we don't want. So you can spend time cleaning these up. And the more you clean them up, the better and cleaner your castings are going to be, which you really want, because you would rather, at least I would rather, do clean up on one piece than clean up on every piece you cast, right? Does that make sense? Makes sense to me. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing on the back side of this. I'm going to take my index finger and just push it up a little bit, pop it out with my X-Acto blade. Notice I'm still trying to avoid touching this with my fingers. Again, we don't want that to happen. So I'm going to put that here, and it doesn't matter if we put our fingers on the back, as long as we're being nice and gentle and putting even pressure on this. I'm going to pop this sucker out, flatten it down, and we have a nice 3/8 inch thick mold. Perfect impressions of our sculptures. So that'll be that one. I'm going to go ahead and do this one, and then we'll come back and I'll show you how, after this is baked, how we go and make our castings, and you will see how fast that is and why I don't have a problem spending 45 minutes making a mold. Okay, so here we are with the finished molds. They're fully baked, super flexible, ready to go. So this one's been cleaned out. I just take a toothbrush and just kind of peel it apart and gently brush out all of the cornstarch that's in there. Same with this one. Let's go in, kind of gently brush out all of this stuff, clean up any mold lines that might be present, any flaws in the mold. Just kind of clip off and generally clean it up so that all of my subsequent castings can be as clean and perfect as I can get them. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some Sculpey. I'm going to condition it a little bit, warm it up, get it all ready to go. Ready to go. Almost there. This is the stuff, the scrap from what I used earlier, so it should be pretty quick. And this is a really easy process. So now that I've got my molds, all I got to do to make a bunch of these things, what I usually do is I take a little brush, get a little bit of water in it. You can use water, or you can use cornstarch. I'm sure it doesn't really matter, but I just get a little glaze of water on here. Just enough to give it something to let go of, right? Cornstarch is probably better for this purpose, but it's super messy, so I don't like using it because I don't like cleaning up. It's a pain in the butt. Ask my wife. I don't like cleaning up. So I'm going to roll this in here because rolling it is the best way to get the most even casting. Right? And it's going to stick a little bit, and that's okay. You just want to take it slow, and if it starts to peel up, just go back in the other direction and make sure it lets go. Okay. Helps if you just keep it going in one direction rather than going back and forth over it, because it won't stick to it and try and peel it out. Okay. So I've got this. Then once I can see the outline, you can kind of see it in there. You can start to see the outline of the doorway there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just take my knife and I'm just going to cut it out. Again, I'm going to be careful not to go all the way through this because I don't want to chop up my mold. And this part doesn't really matter if I get it exact, because I can always clean it up after I pop it out of the mold, right? So then I have this piece just sitting there, and it's a little bit thicker than what I have, but the door was so thin that I kind of wanted it a little bit thicker than that. So I'm just going to peel it up on all four sides, and you'll see it just drops right out. And there we have a nearly perfect casting of our door. And it takes all of 2 minutes to make one of these. So then I just line it up, take my my scrap, and it's almost identical. Almost identical. It's a little bit bigger. Oh, that's because that bottom part needs to get trimmed off, but it's almost identical to the original. So, so it's totally worth it, in my opinion, to do it this way. So I can hammer out several of these in one go. Just again, throw a little more water on there. I put a little too much, so I'm going to take some of that out. And it just takes a few minutes to hammer out a whole bunch of these. And with windows, that's really helpful because I want to put like probably 6 or 7 windows on this. So I want to make sure, I'm going to do the window. Yeah, I should probably put the stuff in there. Otherwise, it's not going to work. I'm really good at this, man. I should think ahead. Some people would edit this stuff out, but I find it hilarious. Right, there we go. And I'm going to put this in here. Kind of make sure that I got enough to do the casting, which I didn't have enough quite for a door, so that's why I'm doing the window. I'm going to roll this one. Whoops. See, sometimes it peels it right out. You want to just push it right back in. So it tries to pull it out before it's ready, then you're going to get a weird looking casting. So go side to side and just gently go from the middle out so it doesn't peel up like that again. Okay, lots of pressure. Oop, let go. Lots of pressure. There we go, and I see my outline coming out, so I'm going to trim it off. Trim all this down. Pop it out. And we have a beautiful window. Again, I'm going to have to trim off the flashing around the outside, but that's okay. That's a very easy thing to do before or after baking. So I'm not really worried about it. You just want to be careful not to hit it with your fingers as you're doing that. So I'm going to make a whole series of these, make up all the ones that I want, and then when I want to install them, I'm going to take them, set them on my piece, like so. I'm going to put this one a little off center because I want to put the window right next to it. Zoink and zoink. And I'm going to add a foundation to this at the end of the process, so I'm just going to butt it right up to the bottom. And I'm going to have those kind of on the front of the piece like this so that we will have windows and doors. All right, so that has been windows and doors for tiny pink houses. This is really long videos, so I hope you all don't get too bored with it. But I'll fast forward through the boring parts and give you just the scoop. So thanks for joining me. This is the Blonde Skeleton, and thanks for being at the Boneyard.